I figured that we do something a little special. You guys know about the hit levels. You guys know about the button notation. So how about we start getting around and getting a feel for the game? I'm going to be using Scorpion and Sub-Zero for this example again.
Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Black Dragon Fight Club.
And today we're going to talk about the basics of offense and defense in Mortal Kombat. Offense and defense in Mortal Kombat are like a river. They ebb and they flow, and they are opposites based on who is playing. Obviously, if Scorpion walks up to this range and starts hitting Sub-Zero and Sub-Zero is forced to block, Sub-Zero is going to become the defender and Scorpion is going to become the offender. And the same goes in response to Sub-Zero being in front of my face, and yeah, you guys get the idea. The important thing to know is what you want to do when you get offense. I'm going to answer that party invite a little bit later. But yeah, the important thing to know is what you want to do when you are in offense or what you want to do when you are on defense. Defense, we're going to keep the rule of thumb simple. Defense is pretty much when you're blocking or when you're on the floor. These states are basically when you're forced to block and wait for your turn. In a fighting game, it's kind of like having a conversation. When you do something on offense, what you're saying has to lead to a point where your statement is going to have an impact on the entire conversation. It's kind of like having an argument. If I make a good point and the opponent can't rebut it, I'm rewarded with credibility. Credibility in this sense is going to be your combos. The same goes for defense. Defense means that it's your opponent's turn to make a statement. The statement is basically going to be your attacking options or how the opponent moves around and about the screen. So you guys know about the statements. Now let's get into the meat and bones of how offense really works in a fighting game. Fighting games run off 60 frames per second, which means that every second there is 60 frames of animation happening. Every time a character jabs or does something, it goes frame by frame to the point where it needs to go, and goes frame by frame to the point where it needs to come back to, that returning point being what we call the idle animation of the character. There are three things that you should know about animation in a fighting game: the startup, active, and recovery frames. Startup frames are basically how fast an attack comes out. The fastest moves in the game come out at 7 frames. They're usually highs, and they're usually how you want to start a hit confirm or a combo. Basic example of a combo from a 7-frame startup move. Active frames is how long the hit region in the game is, well, active for. When you hit someone, there's going to be something called a collision box. And that is how the game is going to determine whether or not you're hitting the opponent, doing something that's not hitting, or doing something that's being blocked. Based on these outcomes, you as a player will be allowed to react and reward yourself with a combo, extension, knockdown, so on and so forth. We'll be going over, well, I'll probably type up a small glossary on what those are a little bit later in the week, but they're pretty much self-explanatory. Recovery is how long it takes for a move to get back to its natural position. As you can see in the lower left corner of the screen, that is my startup, active, and recovery frames for the move. So in 10/60th of a second, my uppercut comes out. It is active for 4/60th of a second, and I recover in 41 frames. For future notation, we're going to refer to them as frames, but that's the basic gist of things. The entire move basically takes about, I'd say, 55 frames to conduct, and that's a pretty long time in a fighting. That's basically an eternity. If I do that and someone does a 7-frame move, that means that they have, I would say, let's see, 55 minus 7, 40, 48, yeah, around 48 frames to punish me for doing that move. This, along with the hit regions, can dictate how you're going to pick your offensive options. In defense, the lower half of this grid is important. Basically, what you want to look at is the block advantage. What you want in your offensive situation is your hit advantage. As you can see, the move has a hit advantage of 11, which means that any move that has a lower startup than 11 cannot be interrupted. And in the event that I have a move that starts up in a higher threshold, because the opponent cannot move for those 11 frames, it means that I can dictate the pace of the game with my other moves that may have a threshold around or lower than that 11. For example, Scorpion's forward 3. This is a 13 frame startup move. If I hit a down 3 and go into forward 3, Sub-Zero, what I'm telling the Sub-Zero player in my dialogue is, hey, you have to block this. You don't have a choice. He can be stubborn if he wants to and not block it, and I'll show you what happens if he decides not to do that. He's gonna eat 34%. Just because he decided, hey, I don't want to block this stuff here, I don't want to deal with it. There, 35%. Just because he decided that I don't want to respect the frame data that is available in the game. On defense, what you're looking for is when it's going to be your turn again. I'm going to set Sub-Zero to all block here because I want you guys to have a clear understanding of what exactly is going on. Actually, here's a better example. I'm going to set the dummy to do a different variation of moves and then jump after it's available for it to jump. I'll do down 1, I'll do the uppercut, and I'll do slide. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that over again. So here we go. Now what should be happening with this playback is based on the recovery or hit advantage in the game. I should either, me as Scorpion, I should be able to jump before this guy because of the recovery time. Oh my god, he's still recording. As you can see, Scorpion jumped before him. Way before him. The block advantage in the down 1 is not as high as it is for the down 2. So as you can see, the Sub-Zero player was able to jump around the same time I was able to jump for. Now let's do the slide. And again, as you can see, the Sub-Zero player jumped way later than I did, which means that he's probably going to be able to get hit in certain situations. This is an easy way to check frame data if the game doesn't have the frame data itself available, but it's still kind of sketchy because you have to, kind of gauge and know what the values are. But yeah, let's get back to the premise of taking a turn. So if Sub-Zero does slide, it is -20 on block. What this -20 means is that he's stuck there in the recovery animation for this move, or just stuck there, period, for 20 frames. I have a 7 frame normal, I have a 13 frame mid, I have a 14 frame mid. So what that means is that I can punish this move. Let's talk about the down one and how we can make our arguments better. Down one is -6 on block. What this means is that it is my turn as Scorpion to play the game, but I'm not guaranteed any hits. What this creates is called a strike-throw mix-up. It means that it's my turn, and my goal here with my turn is to open the opponent up. The reason why I'm saying it creates a strike-throw mix-up is because the quickest thing that I can go for in this situation, or the best things for me to go for in this situation, is my own down one, which is 7 frames, which means that he can't interrupt it, he has to respect this option, or a throw. Both options have a reaction for the action that can be performed that the opposing player can pick and get their turn back. This is how conversations ebb and flow in Mortal Kombat. I think that basically explains offense and defense in a nutshell. In a more advanced guide or later guide, I'll talk to you guys on exactly how to structure. Well, actually, you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to you guys on how offense works specifically, and how you can turn your offense into A, safe offense, B, combos, and C, situations that are basically lose-lose for the opponent. Thanks for tuning in, guys. AJ the Rum Punch Kid signing out.